Mr. Speaker, sir, thank you for allowing me to speak on the motion. Sir, considering how I'm the last to speak, I feel my speech on the by-elections may end up a by the way. But nonetheless, I will put forward my humble opinion on this issue. Sir, this topic could not have been more timely. The Prime Minister said in his National Day rally speech that he wanted to encourage more citizens to engage in debate, to participate in building our shared future, and that the Singapore system would progressively open up even more. Of course, he was referring to how the government would keep up with the new media and how the rules at Speaker's Corner would be liberalized. Barely a week later, here is a chance to continue in this direction laid out by the PM to demonstrate, although not at Hong Lim Park, that changes are being made to allow Singaporeans to play a more active role in the country. In fact, if this House were to support the motion, it would be a far more powerful and far more meaningful statement about the value this legislature and this government affixes to the role that Singaporeans play in building our shared future. Here's why. While every country may be different, the most basic feature of every democracy is the electoral process. That should tell us the fundamental importance, first, of the ability to vote, and next, to be able to do so in a free and fair elections. There can be no purer way to have people take ownership of their country, have a say in deciding their future, and be involved in the political process. While governments are entrusted to represent their people and lead the country, every 4 or 5 years, or when the nature of that representation has changed, the public is entitled to reclaim their country at the ballot box. Singapore is not an ancient civilization with 5,000 years of history to give a people an innate and deep-seated stake in the country. Only if she were, then perhaps we could dismiss the importance of elections in giving citizens a sense of ownership. So it is heartening to hear how the PM wants to encourage Singaporeans to build our shared future. Therefore, when it comes to this issue of by-elections, I'm not so concerned about the legal where-tos and constitutional wherefores about why this House should or should not affirm the motion. To me, the guiding principle should be the long-term interests of Singapore. At a time when Singapore is set to face increasingly more challenging population issues, from the lack of babies to the increase in immigration, we must act to strengthen citizenship, not weaken it. I believe this motion strengthens citizenship. On the other hand, imagine the message we would be sending if we defeat this motion. In essence, we would be telling Singaporeans that it does not matter if half or more of the MPs in your GRC vacate their seats for any reason. It does not matter if your vote has been nullified because your MP in your single-member constituency has vacated his or her seat. It does not matter if there is no minority representation in your GRC. What would Singaporeans think, especially young Singaporeans, about the role they play and the kind of Singapore we want them to inherit? We have had instances in the past where seats in single-member constituencies have been vacated and have not been filled until the next election. It would seem the constituency survived. If we consider this issue using the conventional yardstick of tangible impact to services in the constituency, there may be no need to hold by-elections. But I call on this House and the government to aspire to higher ideals and objectives. In 1970, when the Minister Mentor was Prime Minister, he articulated these principles at one rally. He said, and I quote, "Very simply, we need not have had a by-election. But it is not in our nature to allow things to go on, to allow time to pass by when we can, in fact, improve matters, make things better, and prepare for the future. We took this opportunity not because there was anything wrong or inadequate in what the incumbent MP had been doing for us, but that we felt the time had come and he had given of his best. We need a new recruit and somebody who has a greater performance," unquote. We all know that having a full complement of MPs is the optimal situation. Let us not be satisfied with getting by with less. Let us always have a people-centric approach. I read the parliamentary reports the last time the by-election issue was debated extensively. I read how it was said that it would not be fair to ask other MPs in the GRC to resign simply because a member of the team had vacated his or her seat. I read how by-elections were not deemed necessary to prevent any MP from holding his GRC colleagues to ransom. I failed to see how the people's interest came first in this line of reasoning. If there are problems within an incumbent team in a GRC, is it not in the interests of residents to have a more focused team in place? I think the motion is quite fair to propose that a by-election be called when half or more of the MPs in a GRC and not just one vacate their seats. We should not penalize citizens when a political party is unable to choose good and capable candidates. Currently, it is up to the Prime Minister to decide when to call for a by-election, and it is certainly true that a wise and good PM does not need the law to tell him when a by-election is needed. But surely this House is not complacently assuming that there is no chance our future leaders may be less than wise, or worse, become self-serving. Amending the Parliamentary Elections Act, as suggested by my honourable colleagues Professor Teo Lian and Dr. Loo Chun Yong, would safeguard the value of having by-elections. The question is whether the legislation is flexible enough for the government to act reasonably and for the by-elections to be held fairly. I think so. The time frame provided by the honourable members is fair. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, in the past, the government had said that by-elections could end up as distractions to more important matters at hand. I think we should put more faith and trust in Singaporeans, at least if the government would like Singaporeans to put their trust in its leadership. This is no longer a monochrome world. In this day and age, we must multitask. If we are saying that Singaporeans are not up to multiple challenges, or that only the PM can decide that, we are doomed. All our years of education will have gone to waste. Ultimately, how we view the motion reflects how much we value political engagement, how much we trust Singaporeans, how much progress we are making in opening up the system, and how much we want Singaporeans to be a part of the country's future. And so with that, I support the motion.